So thank you everyone for joining us today to discuss the topic of batteries. It feels particularly timely to be talking about this today because this week's Sifted newsletter came out today and was all about the future of grid technology and the importance of batteries as part of that, and the fact that they're betting on batteries as being a big sector in 2022. Also coupled with the news that Northvolt had recently closed, I think it was a $900 million funding raise recently to build a battery production facility in Germany. So it feels incredibly topical to be looking at this this week. And as we move to a more electrified future, undoubtedly batteries are going to be a huge part of that. How they're manufactured, recycled, and used for energy storage are going to be extremely important in making that move as sustainable as possible. This month, we are joined to come and talk to us on this topic by Karl from INITION, who have developed a breakthrough battery technology that decreases battery production costs without producing toxic fumes and reducing power consumption, making battery production more sustainable. Karl, please come and join us. I think you're on mute.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, got you.
Very good. All right. Well, thanks for having me, and thanks, Ola. That was a very interesting talk. I'm just going to share my screen here now. So yeah, you can see that.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So yeah, I'm Karl. I'm co-founder of INITION Energy, and like Ola, I got into the battery world long before they became the alternative to oil that they are now. As Ola said, they were a niche product, and no one really considered them as important. How I got into batteries and sustainability, I wasn't really interested in being an entrepreneur at the time, and I knew very little about sustainability. But I met this guy called Boris, and he had a business from his sitting room, and he wouldn't tell me what he was doing. And he said to me, "I'll tell you what I'm doing, but you have to work with me first." And that's how he got me. And I started, and it turned out he was he was developing very high performance batteries for security and defense applications. And security and defense, you might think, well, that's not the most sustainable industry around. And to be honest, I totally agree. But they are a reality, and they need to decarbonize. And that's actually one of the reasons that we still work quite closely with them. But at the time, we had this very successful battery. It had 50% more energy density than our closest competitor in the same size, and we started becoming quite successful. We had a lot of customers from different countries wanting our product, and we were producing in South Korea. And we thought, well, maybe now is the time that we set up our own production line. And I suppose if you're asking me to talk about failures, this is probably our first failure, and we failed to set up the production. And the reason is because it was extremely capital intensive to set up production, and to keep production going for batteries is also crazy expensive. It's very wasteful, and as we know now, it's also very environmentally damaging. So we failed to set up production, and it set off a question in our mind: what is it about the current production that prevented us from producing batteries? And we started a R&D program to solve that and reinvent how the battery is made. And we started with the electrode because that's the most important part of the battery. And that was 7 years ago. And we started the project then. Within 3 years, we had a pilot line in Rochester in New York that had the core principles of the technology to demonstrate. And then we've developed it since there to where we have a pilot line here in Harwell in the UK. Actually, I think that's my second slide. Yeah, we're here in Oxford in Harwell, and we're a team of 10 people, a mixture of mechanical engineers and electrochemists, and then business people. So one thing that's different between us and a lot of other battery startups or sustainability startups in this area, Boris and myself, we don't have a core technical background. So we've kind of been trained more on the business side than the technical side. And I would say at the beginning, when we were trying to raise funding and get things going, that was a huge blocker to us. It was a big disadvantage. Even though we had the inventor of the technology as part of the core team, people expected to see people with a PhD or had come from prestigious universities. But what we did is we built a great technical team around us, and particularly now that we're starting to gain traction and grow, the business experience at the head of the company is really helping us to get traction with investors, particularly now when they're looking for revenues and a kind of a less risky bet than a conventional startup. It's really helping us now. So just to show you what we physically make, because we're a hard tech company. This is the electrode of the battery. It's the most important part of the battery. It's the cathode and the anode, and these are coated strips of foil coated with active materials which hold the energy of the battery, and they're either rolled up into a cylindrical battery or stacked into a pouch cell. And we make this part of the battery using 50% less energy, and we make the electrode at 50% less cost as well, which the knock-on effect of the energy reduction is, of course, the carbon footprint reduction, which is 30%. And just to put it in context, the problem that we're solving, in terms of sustainability, the energy to make a battery is 80 kilowatt hours of input to make 1 kilowatt hour of battery. And that needs to be reduced significantly to make batteries sustainable. But the other big energy cost of batteries, which is less obvious, is the logistical cost of batteries, because you have very high dependence on foreign markets for both the materials and also some of the production. And if we can reduce the scale of battery production from gigascale to smaller scales that are less efficient but more flexible, then we can ease the logistical burden on battery production. And that's one of the things we're trying to do. We're making battery production more sustainable at lower volumes. So the other problems that we're solving is the domination of EVs, of the battery market. So all the batteries that are being produced at the moment are with an eye on the EV market, and other applications can't get the batteries that they need. We're able to tailor production to make batteries much more cost effectively and efficiently at lower volumes. So say power tools, e-bikes, security and defense even can get exactly the kind of battery they need without paying a huge premium for it. And then the other problem is the cost of production generally is too high, and a large part of that cost is in electrode production, particularly in the use of toxic solvents like NMP, which we've been able to replace with water, and that's one of the keys to our success and making the production both smaller, more flexible, and less harmful to the people actually making the batteries themselves. So then just talk a little bit about our team. I would say, thinking about success and failure, building the team has probably been our greatest success, but also our greatest failure along the way. And I was talking with Julia yesterday. I was saying how challenging recruiting is for us at the moment. But when I say success, I mean, look at the team we have. The team we have is incredible. And they're not really employees. They're like missionaries. They're on a mission to change the world and change battery production in particular. But um, we couldn't be happier with the team we have. The failure is all those that we hired and are no longer with us. So we had quite a high turnover of people when we started recruiting to now. And I think part of the problem was that Boris and I, when we started, we didn't have experience recruiting people. And we saw people who had great CVs and they interviewed really well. But one of the things I think that we missed was getting people prepared for working in a startup. And it's not for everyone. It's very, very difficult. And we don't work crazy hours or anything, but every day at INITION is extremely intense, and you have to be able to deal with failures in the lab. You have to get over failures quickly, and you have to work very, very well with interested customers to keep the project moving. And we found that a lot of people, like, we didn't hire anyone that was bad, like bad technically, or terrible people or anything. They just didn't fit. They didn't work for us. Um, and maybe that was the process we had to go through at that time to get the amazing team we have now. But we're trying to improve that. So because it's expensive, having a higher turnover is expensive. But at the moment, we're hiring mechanical engineers and electrochemists, and some of the skills are here in the UK, and some of them simply are not. So, for example, battery production knowledge. The UK doesn't really produce batteries, so for those kind of hires, we're going to have to go outside the UK and bring people in, which is a challenge at the moment, the way things are in the UK. But then for other skills like mechanical engineering, and there's some great electrochemists in the UK, some great universities with brilliant electrochemistry departments. So we're working closely with them. And the other thing we can see is that particularly we're making machines, and we can see a lot of skills within the UK where they're not necessarily battery production skills, but they're skills that can be transferred into battery production. And that's one of the things we're looking at to kind of cover the gaps that we have in recruiting. And yeah, things that I'm excited about. Well, so we've demonstrated our technology now in the pilot line, so we're working to start scaling up, and we're opening this new market of battery production at lower scale for niche sectors, so power tools and that kind of thing. And it's very exciting creating that new market. Things that keep me up at night. Well, we're fundraising at the moment, so I don't sleep much at the moment anyway. But that would keep me up if I did sleep. And hiring is the other thing. Building the team. And yeah, that's about it for me for the moment.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Karl, for sharing that. And I think the biggest leap of faith I've ever heard was Boris saying, "Come and work for me, and then I'll tell you what I'm working on." So
I was just curious, yeah.
kudos to you for taking that leap of faith.